In this week's episode of StudioInter, we'll be reviewing the Milan derby defeat together with AC Milan, a Twitch English presenter and host of OverSports, Cindy Marina. We'll be previewing the Roma game in the Coppa Italia, previewing the Napoli game in the Serie A, this week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on StudioInter on StudioInter.com. Benvenuti, bentornati to another episode of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima, Tavallaey, wishing you back to a week that started poorly from an Inter perspective. But before we get to all of that, let me introduce my panelists, starting with SempreInter.com's preview writer, who really, like most Inter fans of Egyptian descent, had a really horrible weekend. But he goes by the name of Mr. Positivity, so he really needs to work for that label today. Welcome, Mr. Mohammed Nassar.
Yeah. It's a 1-2 sucker punch, man. It was meant to be a glorious weekend, and it really didn't turn out the way we wanted to. But you know what? I get paid the big bucks to be called Mr. Positivity, so I'll do my best to validate my paycheck.
Okay, that's brilliant. We are also joined by the SempreInter.com feature writer. 5 things we learned from Inter this week. Mr. Jake Smalley, how are you?
I'm okay. I've not had a good moan for a while, so it should be a bit of a moany podcast for me. I'm hoping that Mo is on positive form and can cheer me up a little bit. Although I am kind of watching Salernitana versus Spezia in the background. That's an absolutely ridiculous game at the minute, so that's helping a little bit.
When Salernitana Spezia is your lifeline to happiness, something is wrong. I'm just gonna put that out there. We're also joined by our very good friend in Milan, Mr. Fulvio Santucci. And Fulvio's very measured and very calm, and Mo's very positive. And I need that because I am not both of those things. I'm very angry and annoyed. So welcome, Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
Ciao Nima, ciao everyone. Yes, I'll be your psychologist tonight because I got a lot of positive stuff, a lot of positive outcome out of this derby. You don't think it's possible, but I have.
Oh, well, that's great because I need to hear it. And we'll have a very special guest, which I alluded to in the intro. She presents the Milan, the Twitch channel in English on Milan, for Milan, together with her good friend Patrick Kendrick. She's also a reporter and host for OverSports, which broadcasts in Albania and Kosovo, while making her Studio Inter debut. Welcome, Cindy Marina.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And I'm excited to talk about all things football.
Yeah, and really, really happy to have you. And thank you for coming on. I just wanted to start off from what your thoughts were on the game. Obviously you were there. You were bordo campo, as the Italians say, covering the game. And you guys, if I'm not mistaken, OverSports are there pretty much. You guys are on location every week, covering the biggest game. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit what your thoughts were going into the game, and also what you think now. What do you take away from it after the crazy result, the way that it ended?
So it was definitely a crazy game. I mean, the derby is always like the most awaited game of the season, and I was at the last derby as well. So that ended in a draw, and this one, ended a bit differently, but. So like you were saying, sorry, just to touch on everything you said. So I am there every single weekend. Usually we're covering the biggest games of the week, the biggest matchup. And so this game, of course, was very exciting. Aside from the derby and the history that comes with it, just being in the stadium and seeing all the fans and just the energy that is present there is really, I think it's magical. And I was very lucky to be a part of it. The game was very exciting. There was a lot of, exciting things happening in both halves. I would say first half, obviously, we all saw that Inter was dominating and they were the favorite to win the game. But, things turned around in the second half. And with Milan winning, I think it definitely makes things a bit more interesting in the whole league as a whole, just for the title race, for the Scudetto, to see now what will happen. But I think from an unbiased standpoint, definitely things are a bit more exciting now in the championship.
They really, really are. I mean, after that first half, did you think there was anything? I mean, how did you think going into the second half? Were you thinking that, well, Inter are going to win this, or did you think that was there anything that said that Milan could turn this around?
I will say that after the first half and just seeing how it was played, I definitely thought that Inter was going to win. They just were dominating, and also I was very close to the goal on Milan's side, on the side of the first half, and all the action was there basically for the first half. So it looked like Milan didn't really have many opportunities to even try to score. Inter was dominating, but then I think for me things changed when the substitutions happened, and some things changed within the game, and once the first goal was scored from Milan, you could kind of feel the energy shift maybe. And I think from there, anything can happen. I think a 1-0 lead is not enough, especially in a derby, to become comfortable, and I think Inter kind of got a little too comfortable.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to hand you over to Mo. Did you have a question for Cindy? The floor is yours.
Yeah, hi Cindy. So my question to you is, now that this is the dust settled off this match week, I mean almost, but do you reckon that Milan are Inter's closest rivals, or do you think Napoli, a resurgent in Napoli with the AFCON participants coming back, with Osimhen possibly returning to the squad quite soon? Who do you think are Inter's closest rivals, or do you think we need to wait till next weekend to see the Napoli game with Inter before we can, analyze this more closely?
That is a bit of a difficult question. I would say the best thing, or the thing that we do need to wait for, is to watch this upcoming game that Napoli has to see how they come out. I think in the first half of the season, Napoli was dominating. They were at the top of the leaderboard, and everybody was talking about them, saying this could be their year. And then there just came a moment when there was a lot of injuries and things just kind of weren't going their way anymore, that we saw, I don't want to say a drop off, but maybe just that momentum decreased a bit, and the attention shifted more to Inter and even Milan. I think also from Milan's perspective, like, they definitely had a strong first half of the season, and Inter kind of was shaky in the start, and things, I would say, like, flip-flop. Now Inter is very dominant and Milan is a bit more shaky and just not as stable as they were in the first half. So I don't know, it's hard to say, honestly. I think we're gonna have to wait and see the game this weekend, but I don't know. I can't give an answer. I think we're gonna have to wait and see, but I think that's what the beauty of Serie A is that anything can happen and things can change, with one weekend, and now there's a new contender for the Scudetto.
Fulvio, if you have a question, then the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And hello, Cindy. Nice again to have you here. And it's valuable too, because you were on the pitch during this game, so you can provide us probably a special look. Because in our fan base, the Inter fan base, especially in Italy, after the game, we discussed about what went wrong. Of course, you already mentioned the substitutions, but you were there. So I noticed, and that's my opinion, but probably I guess, I noticed that during the...
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, during the second half in the Inter bench, the atmosphere was a bit relaxed. People smile, people calm. So did you sense something like that, or did you watch? Did you witness something like that? Do you think that this could have been a factor into the comeback of Milan?
Definitely, yes. I think, I was an athlete myself. I played volleyball competitively for 11 years. And just from an athlete's perspective, I would say anytime that you feel too comfortable, or that if you think things are going better than they should be going, then you need to watch out, because anything can happen. And I don't know, I just feel like Inter that's how not that they were taking it easy, but I would say that I think that they got comfortable after the first goal. that this is going to be, you know, a done deal. And I don't know. I think that is the downfall of many great teams, is when you are not hungry for every single point, for every single match. And I was very close, like you said, I was very close to both sides. I was actually closer to Milan's bench, so I can't speak for what was happening on the bench because I couldn't see from where I was sitting. But watching back videos of just even the substitutions, I don't know, it just seemed like they were very relaxed. I guess that's the best thing that you could say.
Thank you.
Jake, did you have a question for Cindy? The floor is yours.
I certainly did. What did you make of Sandro Tonali's performance? There's been quite a bit of discussion sort of last 24, 48 hours on Twitter about how he's sort of come on quite a lot this season. And I felt a little bit watching the game that it was almost a coming of age of him a little bit. I was disappointed that Inter didn't sign him at the time, but seeing him play last season, he struggled for consistency, but he was pretty colossal during the game on Saturday night. And obviously you've had a better view than us. So what did you make of his performance?
Well, first of all, Jake, I want to say that I read a lot of articles on Sempre Inter when I'm preparing for games. So this is very cool that I get to talk to you personally. And second of all, yeah, so back to Tonali. I think what we've all seen is he's become so talked about within this season, because last season maybe he was struggling to find himself, and now you can see that he is very well. You know, he feels comfortable in the position that he's in. You can see the confidence he has in himself, and also that reflects from the coach to the player. You can see the confidence Pioli has with him in the midfield. I think during the game, he definitely makes a big impact when you provide that stability, especially in the midfield. It shows, and he's a midfielder that we see is attacking a bit more, that gives maybe that extra support when they're missing key players, like Ibra was missing, who, you know, everybody was saying, is Milan going to be able to play the game that they play without him? So I don't know. For me, he's impressed me every single game. I'm always waiting to see how he's going to play and how he's going to rise to the challenge. And I do think that this season that's been his story arc, is just him rising and him showing that he is, you know, deserving of his spot that he has on the team.
For sure. Before we let you go, I wanted to ask you who do you think is going to win the Serie A in the end? Because it's going to go down to the wire. What do you think is going to happen? Give us your top 6?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
everyone has to do it. So it's the awkward moment of the interview.
I know. Well, seeing all of you Inter fans here, I don't know if I say anyone else, you guys might. I'm not sure.
No.
You might not invite me back.
We will always have you back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, definitely we see the contenders are Inter, Milan, Napoli. I don't know, Juve. Okay, I don't think Juve can win it by any means, but you never know. But I really don't think that they can win it. But we did see, you know, last night's performance. We saw 2 new players score. I think that maybe this might be a turnaround for Juve in the second season. So maybe we'll see them climb the leaderboard. Okay, so you want a top 6, or do you want me to just tell you who I think?
Yeah, just tell me from 1 to 6 how you think it'll end.
Okay, how do I think it will end? Okay, I think Inter will win. So I'll say Inter first. I think Milan second. I'm gonna say Juve is gonna work their way up to third. I don't know if that's possible, but okay, Juve, Napoli, Atalanta, and then I guess, well, I don't know. I'll go with Lazio because I really like Milinkovic-Savic, and I think he can do good things for them.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for coming on. If people want to find you on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, etc., what's your handle? And if you got something coming up that you want to plug, then the floor is yours.
Yeah, so okay. My Instagram is at Cindy Marina with 2 A's. My Twitter is at Cindy Marina _. And no, I don't really have anything else. I just want to say thank you guys for having me. I think it's always fun to talk about, you know, the amazing league that we all love to watch, and especially you guys, I'm sure, are much more seasoned. So it's good to hear your guys' perspectives too, and also just be a part of the conversation. So thank you so much, and I hope to speak to you guys again soon.
Thank you for coming on. We'll definitely love to have you on again. Thank you, Cindy. Take care.
Have a good night, you guys.
You too. Take care.
Oh, palimderit. Ciao.
Thank you. Right. That was Cindy Marina from OverSports and from Milan TV's Milan Twitch channel. Right. I want to pick up on the derby. And there's so much to talk about. And there's so much to unpack. So I'm going to ask like direct questions. I mean, a lot of people have been saying a lot of things about why Inter lost, and it is no doubt that Inter gifted away this derby. I think these are 2 derby games now where Inter, because of their lack of having a natural goal scorer and having someone who makes those important, who buries the games, Inter gifted this game away. I mean, we've spoken about Samir Handanovic to death. I want to talk about Stefan de Vrij, because I think that based on his performances this season and also last season, I think he was where Samir Handanovic was a couple of seasons ago. If you remember, Samir Handanovic's decline began the season after he was appointed or named the best Serie A, the best Serie A goalkeeper of the season, and then the decline began. The same thing, in my opinion, has happened with Stefan de Vrij. The season after he got the award as the best central defender in the Serie A, the decline began. And this season, we're starting to notice it. It's been many a game this season where his mistakes have been so horrible and awful and unforced that he's cost Inter points and goals. Olivier Giroud has never in his career, even when he quote unquote was in his prime, turned a defender. He turned Stefan de Vrij. And then what we saw Handanovic do was, it reminded me of when my grandmother, God rest her soul, because she died of Alzheimer's, and when I used to visit her once a week, they had this kind of exercise session for all the old people. That's how it looked like when Handanovic tried to save that ball. It was painful to watch. I'm sorry, but it was absolutely horrible, and it's not his fault. He should have been replaced. My point is this: Inter need to address the de Vrij situation in the summer immediately before it becomes another Handanovic situation. And I want to start with you, Fulvio. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay. Obviously, it's not the best season that Stefan de Vrij is having here. I mean, he made mistakes, all right. He made mistakes against Lazio. He made mistakes in the Supercoppa. He made mistake in the derby. But I think also it's the more exposed, especially in the game of yesterday. I mean, the mistake it's not a de Vrij one because basically he conceded the best foot to Olivier Giroud, which is obviously it's the left, and Handanovic did the rest. All right, but till there the match was good for him. So yeah, I mean, it's likely then the situation is not that we're talking about a bad defender. We're talking about probably the less better. How you can say that of the 3 defenders, because he's part of a defense that actually conceded 6 goals in 3 months, right? So I don't want to give the trial to de Vrij or give give all the blame to him. I think that it was just the last part of a collective disaster that happened into that 3 minutes, especially because I mean. We tend to see the final step of that action by Olivier Giroud that led to the goal, of course. But if we go to the starting part, we see that basically Calabria can make that pass to Giroud without any kind of filter in the middle, and that's the worst problem for me, because basically we made this guy enter into the box and go one-on-one without any kind of opposition on the ball. And that I think it was due to the substitution of Çalhanoğlu, which was the real mistake of this game, because the Perisic one was not wanted. It was just that the guy have a physical problem and Simone Inzaghi didn't want to take the risk. But the Çalhanoğlu one was painful, and that was the trajectory that Çalhanoğlu normally would close. I mean, Vidal was there, but he didn't make any opposition on that. So I think that's the beginning of the disaster. And after that, yes, de Vrij made mistake, and probably we need to address the problem, of course, because Skriniar and Bastoni actually give in this during this season gives this different kind of reassurance when it comes to the defense. But I mean. Also, Skriniar had a bad season. I mean, not so good season in the first year with Conte, and I think it is a matter of adaptation on the Conte transition in that case, and probably de Vrij, even though he played with Inzaghi, but it was not the same. It was not the same style of play. I think he had some problems. So I'm not going to blame him, of course, for this.
Okay, but overall, if we're talking about a decline, and what I mean that he is now where Handanovic was a couple of seasons ago, and this is a problem that needs to be addressed, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
I don't think we are the same. We're the same point, Nima. I mean, yes, you can probably see this coming, but I don't think we are at the same in the same point with him. Even because his mistakes was just in the last 1 month and a half. The real mistakes were exposed only in the last month and a half, because not in the beginning of the season, but I think in the middle of the season, where the Inter was performing, de Vrij was performing as well. So it could probably just a lack of condition, of course. But we know that de Vrij is on expiration of the contract, so it might be an occasion and to settle this. And I agree with you with that. But I don't think he's declining, actually. I think he's just in a bad shape at the moment.
Okay. Well, hope you're right, because I think that unless Inter get Bremer, I think they're extending with de Vrij, and we don't need another Handanovic. We don't need that. I want to ask you, Mo, a little bit your thoughts on the de Vrij Handanovic thing, and also briefly you, Jake, before we move on to Simone's substitutions, because that's something that's also been a hot talking point, and Fulvio alluded to that. So Mo, you go.
Yeah, regarding the de Vrij situation, I think I'm more inclined to agree with Fulvio, Nima, than you. To be honest, I think de Vrij has never been fast, and I think what's happening, we've spoken at length about Inzaghi's imagination of Bastoni's role in the squad, and I think de Vrij's struggles are probably due to that, because like Fulvio said. It's probably due to him being uncovered or caught off guard at times, and he's not the fastest of players. So I hope it's a matter of adjustment. I think his style of defending anyway is more thoughtful, more positioning, heavy than he is like let's say a Skriniar or whatever. So I don't know. I'm lost to really start worrying too much about the decline in de Vrij's performance. Okay. Let's see how the rest of the season pans out.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right in saying we definitely don't want another Handanovic situation where we're tied down with an aging, declining, a defensive pillar, and we just we're scrambling for options when it's too late. So I think you're right in the sense that the management needs to always have an eye on replacement and replenishment, especially in such an important role. But I think I would imagine Inzaghi is going to fix this problem, tactically, positioning wise, the modular plays over the next couple of weeks, and I hope de Vrij's quality is able to sustain him at the top level, at the highest level within the squad for at least another season or two.
Right. What about you, Jake? Are you with Mo and Fulvio, the positivity duo, the dynamic duo of happiness, as I'm going to call them from now on, or are you with the more miserable side of this pod, myself?
That's like the angel and the devil on each shoulder, that, isn't it, really? It's a tricky one. I think the biggest issue is he's played at such a high standard for pretty much the entire time he's played for Inter that when he's had a few bad games, they do get magnified a little bit more. I think I'd argue there's a couple of games at the back end of even last year where he's almost seemed to lose even that slight bit of pace that he didn't even already have. I think of the Lazio game when he got a bit mixed up alongside Skriniar for Immobile's goal. I don't think he's been brilliant this season, but I don't think it's quite as dire a situation as Handanovic. I think it's possibly something that's a bit easier to fix as well. Although it looks as if Inter might have a fix in for Handanovic. I'm quite convinced by signing Bremer. I think he'd be a really good replacement physically. He fits the bill. And he's a player sort of at the top of his game at the moment too. On Handanovic, I really like your analogy, but I was almost sort of thinking of when you sat on the couch and you lean forward to the coffee table to pick the remote up, but you can't be bothered putting your feet on the floor. That's what I kind of getting. He was stretching for a handful of crisps off the coffee table. It was horrible.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, let's talk about the substitutions, because they have been quite the talking point, and they are. My personal opinion is that it's not so much the substitutions in terms of the players he brings on, because those are just the ones he has. My problem is the ones he took off and takes off, and his read of the game, just like Fulvio alluded to, with Çalhanoğlu should not have been brought off. In my opinion, Brozovic and Çalhanoğlu should not have been brought off. If you take Perisic had to come off because he had cramps, but then played Darmian there. And then instead he brought Di Marco there, and then he took off Bastoni and played Darmian, and then he just confused everyone. And then I would have taken Barella off if I was going to take any midfielder off, and I would have taken Dzeko off and had Alexis play next to Lautaro. These are the kinds of substitutions I would have liked to have seen, and I think that's what he gets wrong. We will talk a little bit about the Stefano Sensi's thing again, because I want to hear what Fulvio thinks, but that's my read on it. What do you think, Fulvio? Is that what you think it is, or where are you on the whole Simone substitution fiasco we saw on Saturday?
Well, to be honest, Nima, I don't think it's a matter of substitutions. I mean, yes, the substitution were not welcome in that case, but I think that it came from a too relaxed handle of the final stage of the game, right? I think that, and I mentioned this and hinted at this earlier with Cindy when I asked her if she senses that the bench was relaxed, is because from my TV I was watching the bench and the guys in the bench that was laughing and making a lot of fun, and they were too relaxed, right? It was a derby 1-0, and they were too relaxed when Çalhanoğlu went out. I think that someone there was thinking about sealing the deal, and I think that Simone Inzaghi conveyed, I mean, not voluntarily probably, but I think he conveyed this message to the team and also to the substitutes, because no substitutes enter with the right attitude. You see Sanchez, you see Vidal, you see Di Marco. We're talking about a defeat, but except for Handanovic and de Vrij, I think the guys, the starting lineup actually play a good game, right? So the substitution actually took off this part of the game made by the starting lineup, but not because they are too low quality to beat Milan, because this is false. This is not true. I think that it just had this impression that Inter already sealed the deal, and they just need to control, and they just need to play with the time and play with the ball, because other games were coming, and we needed to be rested for that game. But you can do that if you are 3-0 probably, but in a derby you will never never do that. I think this is a mistake of. I think this is a lack of experience by Simone Inzaghi, and I think he comes from the fact that he was thinking too much about the following games and not about this one. I mean, he took off Çalhanoğlu because it was booked, but. Yeah. You expect people to be booked in a derby. I mean, that's the most agonistic game you can have during the year. You need to expect people to be booked during a derby, and no matter if they are defenders, midfielders, or strikers, people get to be booked or sent off during a derby. It's typical, right? So I think this is a lack of experience by Simone Inzaghi, and I think it's a hard lesson that he's going to learn, because the match was prepared very well. But very well. I mean, for an hour, AC Milan didn't see a ball, guys, and that's real, right? So something changed in the attitude of this team, and that was a lack of experience by the coach here in a game like this. And I think it could just improve from here. Just because he did everything good before the game, but he didn't do well. It's the same thing that he made when he was coach of Lazio. You remember the Lazio Inter, the Champions League playoff, in which it was 2-1 at 15 minutes to go, and he took off Immobile. I mean, he substituted Immobile, and he lost the game because he thought that the deal was sealed, but it was not like that. And I think this is the same. Too much relaxed, too much presumption, too much we are unbeatable, too much they will never come back. But it's a derby, and everything can happen every moment. So I think that's the real mistake of the night.
That's interesting. What about you, Mo? What do you think about do you think that was the mistake, or do you think this is what Fulvio described is more what happened, or are you a little bit where I am, where I'm thinking he gets it wrong in terms of reads of games, in terms of bringing off the wrong players more than putting on the wrong players, or do you think it's a combo of both, or where are you?
I think I'm going to subcontract my opinions to Fulvio today. I think he says he articulated everything I wanted to say perfectly. Honestly, that's not to say that the substitutions were not correct, but I agree with Fulvio that the mistake was in the attitude and the intention behind the substitution rather than the tactics behind it or him making a mistake. I think it's an overall attitude mistake. I think that he dropped the ball. I think, like Fulvio said, they started getting too casual. It's a tough run of games, thinking too far ahead instead of at the end of the 90 minutes that were beckoning with an emphatic victory that could have changed the trajectory of the season. So, I think it definitely is a learning point for Inzaghi. Either way, it's a mistake by Inzaghi, but I think it stemmed, like Fulvio noted, it stems from a bit of overconfidence and a long-sightedness and not focusing enough on the match at hand.
What about you, Jake? What do you think?
I think Fulvio's just alluded to it just a moment or two ago. I think what concerns me is he's got history for this. I think there was a game last year at San Siro when Lazio were ahead against Milan, might have been the year before actually, and he took Milinkovic-Savic and Immobile off. There was a 1-goal deficit, and the game just changed completely because of that. And that's what concerns me, is the fact that he's already seen something like that happen before, and he's not learning from it, and that worries me a little bit. I mentioned that in my article. It's a little bit worrying that he's got form for this, and he's yet to really get over it. And I think, just my opinion, but I never understand management in games where you're trying to sit on a 1-goal lead. That game, anybody who watched the first hour of that game, there was only one team that were going to win it. So, in terms of game management, what you've got to do is you've got to get on the front foot, and you keep hold of that power, whether that's by scoring another goal, whether that's by dictating the play by just keeping hold of the ball a little bit better. That's fair. But as soon as you substitute an attacking player such as Çalhanoğlu, or you take off Lautaro Martinez, who's more likely to create a goal on his own than what Edin Dzeko might, you're blunting your attack. I understand Çalhanoğlu getting a yellow card. He was getting a bit frustrated. But as soon as you bring on Vidal for Çalhanoğlu, you bring on possibly a better defensive-minded player. But if you need to score a goal, which even at 1-1 Inter wanted to do, they didn't want to drop any points on a game they should have won. You're having to backtrack then straight away. And
thank you for bringing that up, because that leads directly into my next point, and the insanity of sending Stefano Sensi on loan to Sampdoria, because that squad is what it is. We can't bring in players in January. There was no money to bring anyone else's, and that's why I kept beating on the drum that letting Stefano Sensi go is a mistake. And I base that on risk minimization. I look at it like this. What's the bigger risk? Keeping Stefano Sensi in the squad after he's been healthy and training consistently with the rest of the squad for 3 months, and bringing him on and bringing him up the pecking order from Vidal, Gagliardini, and Vecino, or sending him on loan to Sampdoria, where he can't do anything for Inter, and you're stuck with Gagliardini, Vecino, and Vidal as your options off the bench. For me, the risk of him staying at Inter and maybe injuring himself is lower than sending him to Sampdoria, where you have absolutely no control and can't bring him on, and you're desperate and you have to play Gagliardini and Vecino and Vidal. And that's what I mean. No, because I know the four of us agree, and I think everyone in the world agrees that Stefano Sensi is a better player than all of those three players combined, right? In this moment in time. That's why I find it so frustrating and so annoying and such an unforced error to let him leave. And that is something, again, I mean, all of you know how much I rate Simone Inzaghi as a coach. I think for 3.5 years I've wanted him I thought he's an ideal coach. But this is a mistake. And he's made a couple of mistakes at Inter. The insistence on Joaquin Correa has been a mistake up until now. And this is a huge mistake, not understanding that, okay, he was injured in Sampdoria game. That was months ago. That was beginning of the season. Since then, he's worked himself slowly up to fitness. He should have been higher up in the pecking order than Vidal, Gagliardini, and Vecino. It makes no sense to me whatsoever that he wasn't. He even got a preview of it in the Coppa Italia against Empoli, and still he let him go and brought in Felipe Caicedo, who's injured. It's unforced error after unforced error. And I think it's a huge mistake. And I just hope it doesn't end up costing him this title, because that'll end up costing him his job and maybe even a career, which I thought, which could have a completely different career trajectory than it could have had he not made these simple errors. What do you think, Fulvio? What's your thoughts on the whole Sensi thing?
I completely disagree with you, Nima.
Okay, okay, that's great. Great. Okay, I want to hear.
I'm sorry. No, I mean, no. Let me dig into this. I think you're right on the perspective of a supporter. You're completely right on the perspective of a supporter. And it's reasonable that you think that on the perspective of the supporter. On the perspective of the team, of a team member, I think the thing is different. And the thing is different because Stefano Sensi has a psychological issue in playing with Inter, right? Because you never rely on him. You can never rely on him, and you never relied on him for 2 years. Right, because Inter tried so hard with that, but Stefano Sensi disappeared basically at the end of 2019. I mean, there wasn't a COVID strike. It means it was a lifetime ago, right? And never came back. I mean, when you came back and you came back 3 or 4 times and you injured after half an hour or. One match and a half, you have a psychological issue. And Conte actually last year hinted at that, right? He said, since he's not ready, and I don't know if he will ever be ready. And I don't think.
I don't understand what you mean by psychological issue, because if he injures himself, how is that a psychological issue?
You need to play.
I don't understand.
He needs to play. To gain confidence, he needs to play, because it's a player that is not playing regularly for 2 years. He needs to play in order to not question himself, in order to get rid of the fear that he had to get injury. He needs to play, and Inter cannot guarantee him to play. Right,
but I think he could. This is what I mean. He can.
No,
Barella's suspended.
He couldn't. It's 2 years that he could play. Nima. He never.
No, but I'm talking about now. I'm talking about these last few months.
Talking about now. But we made the same assumption 2 years ago when we were here by saying, okay, my Christmas wish is Stefano Sensi become again a player.
Yes,
never
it
happened.
Was. It didn't happen. But don't you agree? Don't you also agree that Antonio Conte trains the player?
you cannot lose the title because of Sensi, Nima. You never had Sensi into the team. You never count Sensi into this team, right? Until he went to Sampdoria, you never count Sensi into this team. And the team went fantastically without him, right? Last year and this year too. So you never count on him. So the huge risk here was to keep a player that was psychologically affected by this situation, right? And the risk is that you're not able to sell him, you're not able to keep him, you're going to lose, and both sides lose. Lose him, that is going to lose the World Cup because he went to Sampdoria to play for the World Cup because Mancini suggesting to do that, right? And you have a player that you cannot get rid of because nobody wants him, because he never plays, because he's always injured, and you can never have the room to enter another player that might be fit, that might be psychologically okay. I think, yes, it's a risk to let him go, right? But he made just one appearance in Sampdoria, right? He did good, but let's see in 2 or 3 weeks what he do.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. My point is
before coming to this, and the huge risk here was to actually kill the player, right? If he stay here another 6 months, like the last 2 years, not playing, and when playing it was just 10 minutes a game, and the risk to get injured was always there. I think that you're going to kill the player, and you're going to lose what could be a resource for you in the future, for the team, or for the mercato in the future. I think that there was no way out on the situation except send him to play, send him to be the good guy of a mid-table team, and going to be regenerated by this if we're going well, and come back in June. I mean, you didn't sell him. You just loaned him.
No, I know that. What I'm saying is simply this: that everything that you said that has happened to him is absolutely true. All of that is true. What I'm saying is this: for the past 3 months, he's been training with the team. He's not been injured. You saw what he could do when he came on against Empoli. You know that Nicolo Barella is suspended for 2 games against Liverpool. So you're relying on Arturo Vidal, Mattias Vecino, and Roberto Gagliardini in those 2 important games. You cannot tell me that Stefano Sensi would not have played in those games, because he would have, and he would have done better than any of those other players.
I tell you, he was not gonna play in this game. First of all, because he's not ready physically. Because Liverpool go into a rhythm that you need to be ready physically, and we're never going to play. And you're never going to play in this kind of game. Second, now the first leg, of course. Secondly, speaking, Sensi can be the replacement of Brozovic and Çalhanoğlu, not Barella. Definitely not Barella. And I add you this, Nima: if somebody at Inter was believing that Sensi can be a reliable resource of this team, we would never bring in Çalhanoğlu, because it was useless at that point, right? Eriksen had this problem. You got Sensi. Sensi is going to play, but nobody relied on Sensi. And if Sensi was fit and didn't play for 3 months, it's because he wasn't able to play.
But Sensi, in the opening game against Genoa, when Sensi played with Çalhanoğlu, that's when Çalhanoğlu was outstanding, and that's something that we've seen tactically. But it's not just Genoa. It's not just Genoa. I'm talking about the fact that he can play as a number 10, and that there's a tactical we've seen.
But he didn't.
What I'm saying is that when he plays, like, he can play in that number 10 role, and that Çalhanoğlu has been at his best when he has a number 10 in front of him, like whether it's Correa, Alexis Sanchez, or Stefano Sensi. That's what I'm saying, that he offers this other tactical.
But he didn't. He's a ghost since 2 years. He's a ghost since 2 years.
But that was 2 years ago. What happened 2 years ago?
Let's get it simple. Either everybody has anger with Sensi for some reason, right? Conte, Inzaghi, or Sensi.
No, not anger. I'm not saying it's anger. I'm just saying
Sensi is not fit to play. I need to rely on the coaches. Conte told it, and Inzaghi hinted it. It's not fit to play, right? At Inter, and in Inter in this very moment. So I think it's a risk to lose him for the second part of the season. But let's be honest here: 15 games to go, right? Plus the Champions League game, which will probably be 2, and the Coppa Italia game, which at the worst of cases will be 4. We're talking about 20 games. We made 40 games so far without Sensi, and we did it fantastically. So what's the big deal here? I don't understand.
No, but my point is, the big deal is that Vecino, Vidal, and Gagliardini, when you're going into the business end of the season, they're being your backups to your three midfielders is a weakening. They're not good enough. Gagliardini, Vidal, and Vecino are not good enough when you're trying to win.
Neither Sensi is good enough.
Well,
Nima,
I think
because
that's what I'm saying. That's where we disagree. I think that he is, because I don't think that him being injured 2 years ago is a problem.
As a matter of fact, he didn't play for 2 years. He cannot be good. If he wasn't good, if he was good, he managed to play, right? He managed to play. I mean, a player can have injury, of course, but Sensi does not play since 2019. It's a lifetime, Nima. He cannot play. He cannot all out of the blue be the best guy in the midfield after 3 years as a ghost. It's not realistic. Let's be honest.
I think it is, because the alternatives are worse, and especially now that he's at Sampdoria, we'll see what happens. And I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake. I really think this is a mistake, and I just hope that it doesn't end up costing Inter titles, because it could. Because we don't have another midfielder.
I don't see how, because Sensi was never part of this team. It's 2 years that he's not part of the team. No, so I don't see how he can cost title. So but I respect your point of view.
No, I know what you mean, but what I'm saying is that he could have been the classic Adriano Galliani quote when a player comes back from injury after the January mercato. He used to say, "This is our new. This is like a new signing." You know what I mean? So that's what I meant. That he could be like one of those. Like he could have offered that, because he's not been consistently fit. Because under Antonio Conte, we know Antonio Conte's training regime was like a hammer. He hammered these guys. And I think that's a big reason why Sensi was injured for 2 years under Antonio Conte. But since then, he came under Inzaghi. He had an injury against Sampdoria. Since then, he's worked himself pretty much back. And still, Inzaghi doesn't trust him. And I just think that I disagree with that decision. I really do, because I think that when you look at the alternatives, again, risk management, what's the bigger risk? Giving Sensi a chance, or playing with Vecino and Gagliardini? And in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. I don't get it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's my thing. I just don't understand. And everything else you said was true. I'm not saying that Inter wouldn't, like all the title stuff, that he had no part in Inter winning the Scudetto, none. But in this team, when your options are those, I just think it's wrong. It's a mistake. I just think it's a mistake. But I want to hear what you guys think, Mo and Jake. Where are you guys on this? I'll start with you, Mo.
Once again, I defer to my legal counsel. Yeah, no, I've spoken about this Sensi issue. We were already at odds earlier when we spoke about it before the loan was made official. I think the player was unsalvageable. The only way, the best way forward for Inter was to regain this player back, and the only way for him to come back is to leave and play elsewhere, which he is doing. My problem with Sensi is you can't just slot in Sensi onto the pitch and expect the team to perform well. It needs to be, the only time Sensi performed well in an Inter jersey was in the first few months under Conte, where everything flowed through Sensi. The match, the team was geared to play, and this was why we had that problem with Eriksen subsequently, because Eriksen came in to play that Sensi role and was not able to interpret it properly, and we had almost a season's worth of disappointment with Eriksen because of his and Conte's inability to reinterpret that role. So Sensi's not a normal player that, in my opinion anyway, that you can just tell him, just go in, play one of the midfield three and do your thing and we'll be fine. He's physically weak. He doesn't have any of the legs that Çalhanoğlu does in sort of his defensive responsibility. Much more will be asked defensively and tactically of Barella and Brozovic if Sensi's on the pitch. So I think it's not as easy as, you know what, if we had Sensi, we'd stick him in instead of Çalhanoğlu and he would have created chances, and great. Maybe, I mean, but maybe not. Also, maybe not. Maybe he would have imbalanced the midfield to a degree where we would have conceded even more goals. So I think, the names of Vecino and Vidal and Gagliardini certainly don't spark any sort of enthusiasm in any football fans, visions, for sure, and rightly so. But also, they're the sort of players that you need to grind out results. Now, we agree
that they don't do that. They don't do that.
I mean, they do. They again. I defer to my legal counsel's argument in the previous question where I don't think that it was the player's fault. I think it was Inzaghi's attitude and interpretation of the game, of the match, that was at fault. If you had put in Vecino and Vidal with the right mindset later in the game where you're not sitting on a 1-0 lead at 60 minutes or however long it was, then they're the sort of players that can do something for you. But it was the wrong attitude and the wrong time in the match to do these changes. So yeah, that's what I mean. And you also we don't know what they have in mind with Gosens. We're talking about a lack of creativity, but Gosens both creates and scores a lot of goals for a wing back or whatever. So we don't know what Inzaghi has in mind for Perisic once Gosens is fit. We don't know what he has in mind for Gosens in and of himself. So, I mean, I totally agree with Nima with Fulvio in that I really don't think that Sensi was the savior. We have been bitten more than once. It's the same as Ranocchia. For the longest time, managers would come in and try and rehabilitate Ranocchia. He'd have a couple of good games, and we'd be like, yes, Ranocchia is back, and then boom, he'd shoot himself and the team in the foot. It's the same sort of thing.
Literally.
Yeah. So
but I think that's a different situation because that wasn't an injury. That was more a competence issue.
Yeah, of course. But with Sensi, I don't think it's an injury. Like Fulvio said, it's a mental block. There's something there. There's something psychosomatic. He manifests it because remember last under Conte towards the end of the first season, they were talking about there's nothing wrong on his cans or something, but Sensi kept on feeling some muscle strain and it kept him out. It seems to me that this guy is just unable to handle the pressure for some reason or other, But anyway, I won't take too much time on the issue.
Okay. Jake, what do you think?
Mo actually just mentioned a bit of a point that I was going to actually allude to. I thought at the time when Robin Gosens was signed and since he was allowed to leave, that perhaps it meant that Perisic was going to be used almost a bit of a second striker sort of role. I thought that might be something that we might see towards the end of the season. I thought that might have been in the plan somewhere. Maybe I might be totally wrong, but I thought that was something that might have been an option for them. I feel really catch-22 on this, and I think the case of letting him go out on loan is simply, I think, to maybe get a bit of proof that he still can play at a certain level, or maybe put him in the shop window a little bit. Looking at the game on Saturday, watching how it panned out, and it was made really clear that when Çalhanoğlu's not on the pitch, there's a real lack of creativity in the midfield. He was missed massively. When you consider those three players that you've mentioned, Nima, as well, are the ones that are coming on to replace him. Gagliardini's not going to be creative. He's not going to create chances. He struggles to run. Matheus Vecino is someone who's 2 years, 3 years past his best days for Inter comfortably, and Vidal will probably, when he leaves Inter, play at a really poor standard compared to where he has been, because he's not the same player that he was. And Vidal's been a great player. There's no disrespect there at all. He's been a fantastic player, did a great career, but he's in the winter of his career. He's not going to get the ball anymore, drive through 4 or 5 players and thump one in the top corner. He simply can't do that. As soon as Çalhanoğlu left the field on Saturday, I was worrying where Inter were going to score a goal from, especially when you see that Perisic is off the pitch as well. Stefano Sensi in that role, he's a creative player, but it's so obvious that he has no trust whatsoever from anybody involved in the management side of Inter to stay fit or be reliable. And as much as we can sit here and say, look, he can offer this, and we've got proof, he's fantastic for Italy during that sort of 3 or 4 month period that he was really good for Inter. There's no doubt he's a fantastic player and he can offer that, but it almost feels like one of those situations where the club have decided, look, we can't rely on this guy. I don't think he's going to play X, Y, Z amount of minutes in all these competitions. So it's better we sort of just move him on. It's really frustrating.
I agree. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're both. I mean, that's what Fulvio said, and I think that's what the club has decided to do. I just think that's a mistake. I honestly think that's a mistake. I think this notion that his injuries are, I think it's a mistake. And I hope it turns out not to be a mistake, because I think it will cost Inter. Right, we got a game against. I mean, this is a week of X's just before Valentine's Day. We started with Stefano Pioli, the X that burned us, got his revenge back. Now we've got a sweet X, Jose Mourinho, coming to San Siro on tomorrow. We're recording this on a Monday in the Coppa Italia. Given the Napoli game, should Inter even try to play with a starting lineup, or should they just rotate and focus entirely on Napoli? What would you do, Fulvio?
Rotations, definitely rotation, because yes, I'm not, as I said, I'm not so worried about the season in the Serie A, because this is just something that can happen. I mean, you just lost the game with the second in the standings. That might happen, but of course you need to deliver in the Napoli game now, because also psychologically speaking, it might be good to react immediately. We can do some rotation, but once again, I don't think. I mean, let me be clear. I think there's a huge gap between the starting lineup and the replacement player in Inter, and I think this since the beginning of the season. But at the same time, I don't think that the guys that is coming in replacement, like as you mentioned, Gagliardini, Vidal, Di Marco, are not able to play and beat teams in Italy. I think they deserve to be trustworthy, to be trusted at least, because Vidal played a great game against Torino, which was a tough game. Gagliardini playing a good game against Lazio, which was a tough game. And yes, Roma is definitely a game that needs to be treated properly. We need to be cautious. We need to give an answer, of course, because everybody now expect that. But I think that everybody are now in need of this. Both starting lineups and replacement, and I don't think we can deliver just by playing with the starting lineup. So I will go with some rotation, but clever rotation, right? I mean, I'm not going to change 6 or 7 players, and I think we can do that without sacrificing too much energies, but we need to do that, so we need to be serious about that. And now the player that's going to be typically the replacement one, they need to do a great game now, because they need to deliver more than others. So I think that's their chance, and they're not going to waste the chance exactly when, like they did with the Supercoppa, when the winning goal was scored by 2 substitutions, Darmian and Sanchez.
Fair enough. Well, what about predictions? Because I agree with you on the rotation thing. I think you have to rotate wisely, and not like he did against Empoli, where he was pretty much, I mean, from Radu to the striker was completely different. So I think I just don't want to see 120 minutes extra time and penalties and stuff like that, because that's going to empty into Inter's energy levels.
That's exactly what I see coming. Actually,
thank you.
Exactly what I see coming. I think Inter will yes, it's we'll take some rust from this derby, and it might translate into a draw in the 90 minutes. Then I don't know where it goes, if into the additional time, or into the penalties. I don't know. I think we are going to go through, because we have a derby in the semi-final more than likely, so we have the chance to give revenge. But won't be easy, and probably won't be in the 90 minutes. So my prediction is 1 each, and after that we'll see. Probably win on penalties.
That's exactly my prediction, and I hate you for that, because now you're here to make me feel good, and now you're just making me feel. Really
but we go through. That's
okay. But the Napoli game, for crying out loud, that's more important. Oh Jesus. Okay, what about you, Mo? What do you think?
I'm just here to watch Mourinho come back to the San Siro for an Inter game. It's going to be emotional, man. I got to tell you, it's going to be emotional.
It is.
Yeah, I think we're going to win. It's going to be a regular Inter Roma high scoring game, so maybe like a 3-1. But I think we'll win, and hopefully we'll win in regular time. No need for extra time. And I really do hope that Inzaghi, like you said, Nima rotates, but rotates wisely.
3-1. I'll take that in 90 minutes. What about you, Jake?
I can only see extra time. I really do.
Jesus Christ.
It's funny how it's only taken one defeat to change this mindset, but I think it's going to be absolutely horrible. I think you've got to rotate based on the fixture list. The fixture list is just despicable. Playing in the Champions League, I mean, this is what Inter want. You want to be in all the competitions. You want to be challenging for top honours. But I think if you look now at the end of the season, it's a really pessimistic view. But if you look at the end of the season and look back to this point, you don't want to think I prioritise beating Roma in the Coppa Italia over beating Napoli in the league. And there's the argument as well. I think the Champions League is going to be really difficult to get through in. But Inter don't want to face Liverpool like Milan did and get absolutely folded like a deck chair. You want that to be a really good effort as well. So if there's any game that you can lose in this week of hell or a couple of weeks of hell, I think it's this one. I'd like to see Inter win the Coppa Italia, but I think 1-1, and I think they'll go through, but it'll be painful and horrible viewing. Yeah,
that's three of us thinking 1-1 after 90 minutes and then extra time. Right, let's talk about the real important game. And I'll start with you, Mo. The Napoli game. Away at the Diego Armando Maradona. A game where, if there's one team in the Serie A similar to even more so than Roma, who's a moody team in the sense that when they are buzzing, they overperform, it's Napoli. And Spalletti is the most Napoli coach ever in that sense, because when his teams are buzzing, they can beat anyone. It's the consistency that kills them. And right now, Napoli are buzzing. They've got Kalidou Koulibaly back after winning the AFCON as the captain. He's buzzing. They've got the Lorenzo Insigne situation resolved fully. Everyone is happy from that. Insigne is relieved. Napoli's relieved. Everyone's happy. These are the last few months in his Napoli career for now. We saw them beat Venezia. They did struggle a little bit. There's no doubt about that. And they will be playing at home. So I just see an Inter's coming off a negative derby defeat where they lost the game more than Milan won it. They have a midweek game against Roma, which we've all decided, voted by democracy majority, that is going to go to extra time. I don't see how Inter win this game. I think a draw at the absolute most. What about you, Mo? I sense you're a bit more positive.
Yeah, sneak you in for sure. Sneak you in.
Okay.
It's going to be.
Elaborate.
It's going to be. Balls to the wall defending. It's going to be a tough match. But I think it's going to be one of those matches where Inter's spine, their defensive block, comes through, and I think a counterattack with Perisic and Lautaro sneak it through. So I think a 1-goal margin, whether it's a 1-0 or a 2-1 for Inter, but I think it's going to be an Inter win. I think the same way as was the case with the Milan game, Napoli have far more to lose here. Inter still have a game in hand against Bologna, so technically Inter know that even if they lose here, they still lead the standings. Napoli really have to push the issue. They're going to come out attacking. If Inter's defenses are as solid as we know that they should be, they should be able to hold Napoli out, and Napoli will make mistakes, especially at the back. You're sure Koulibaly is back, but he has played the full AFCON. He has traveled from Africa, or will travel from Africa back. He will have partied, so on and so forth. So I don't expect him to be in the best of conditions. So I think if Inter do play if Inzaghi plays his cards wisely, as he has for the most part so far this season, I think Inter will have all what it takes to win.
Okay, so any prediction from you before I hand over to Fulvio?
Yeah, like I said, either a 2-1 or a 1-0, but a 1-goal margin, last-minute goal to clinch it for Inter, scored by Lautaro.
Okay, all right. Fulvio, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I think that the thing that you said about Napoli are not good news for Napoli, because if they would be able to go along with the buzz that they have right now, and the history speak for them, they have in the museum like 10 or a dozen Scudetti, right? These are teams that are not able to handle the buzz. Napoli and Roma as well. So whenever it's going too good, because they have a lack of consistency, and you are like that with Spalletti is a classic, and because they are in this buzz, this is probably the main reason because they should be worried, right? Because they're going to find Inter, which is also always the team that lose 2 games out of 23, right? And they are so unlucky to find Inter whenever they lose one of these 2 games, right? I don't think it's good news for them. I mean, if we're speaking about Juventus, go with the buzz for winning a row. And, well, I mean, Juventus is different. Juventus knows how to handle this kind of things. Yeah. But teams like Napoli, teams like Roma, normally they fail whenever they are called with what in Italy called salto di qualità, right?
Yeah. The next step of quality, to take the next step of
exactly.
quality. Yeah.
They always fail, right? I'm not saying that they're going to fail, but I'm saying that because things seems to be good for them right now, they should be worried.
Yeah, for me, I agree with that in the sense that the consistency is their problem. That's what I meant. That's why Napoli don't win titles. That's why Roma don't win titles. But in short moments of form, they can, at home, they can beat any team in the world. Like when Roma beat Barcelona 3-0, that crazy game. Do you know what I mean? Like in those moments in time, they can.
No, but I think you're forgetting how Inter played the derby. Except from the result, except from the last 20 minutes. I think you are forgetting how Inter played the derby. Once again, Milan is the second teams in the second team in the standing, and never see a ball for 1 hour. Right? Everybody should be worried to play against Inter, whatever is the moment.
I hope you're right, but I hope you're right with every ounce of my being, with every fiber and atom of my being. I hope you're right, but I think that you're underplaying the impact of this defeat. I think this is going to affect the team.
I think you overweight the impact of this defeat, because the last time that Inter, I can remind you, Nima, the last time that Inter had a defeat was against Lazio, and after that we witnessed 2 months that was beyond exceptional, right? Because they react.
Fantastic. Well, I don't think that's the thing. I think they kind of, because the reason why I don't think so, and I'm a little bit more pessimistic, is because I think Inter peaked a little bit too soon in their season. And usually teams that peak in February, March, April, like under Conte. Remember Conte, after the Sampdoria defeat, his side in February went on this run where they were unbeatable. They mopped the floor with every team in the Serie A, and that's why Inter won the Serie A. I'm a little bit worried that Inter might have peaked a little bit too soon after the Lazio game. That's what I'm worried about. But I hope, as I said, I hope with every fiber of my being that I'm wrong and you're right. So what's your prediction in the Napoli game? What do you think?
Well, at the moment, I mean, despite all that I said, I don't think that Inter will lose this game, but I'm not sure that we're going to win this game. I don't think we are make too much calculation ahead of the Liverpool game. I think this might be a 1-0 game. But I hope it will be a 1-2 game. I mean, realistically speaking, might be a 1-0. So that might scream the apocalypse between the fan base, amongst the fan base. I know, I'm very aware about that. But actually, it's a good result if we get 1-0, because we got only one tough game against Juventus from here to May, and we are practically not. I mean, I don't think I don't say sure, but we have a good chance to take the lead if we to keep the lead, actually, if we consider the game against versus Bologna, which I expect Inter to win that. But I think that this is realistically speaking. But I think that Inter might play with a little bit more than Reals, in the Napoli game because they are hungry. I expect them to be angry, so it might be a 1-2 game.
I hope you're right. My brain says, my heart says a 1-1 or a 2-1 win for Inter, but my brain says 1-0 Napoli Osimhen. I just can't get past that, and I'm scared because that blows the Scudetto race wide open, and Inter then have to rely on winning pretty much every game and then going to Juve Stadium against that.
After all, it's February, Nima. There's no way to seal the deal right now. So
no, of course, that's true. I just, this is the thing, Fulvio. I'm an old Interista like you. I don't want to go to Juve Stadium to go book HQ and have to win, because we know that Inter never wins in those situations.
Well, I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, no. I mean, the Juventus game is beginning of April. I don't think we are in that situation. And I think that everybody, including you, Nima, are overestimating the competitors, because we saw the season of competitors. Milan actually lose against Sassuolo. Milan lose against Fiorentina. Milan is
not a Scudetto contender. For me, Milan is not.
It's a Scudetto contender, but Inter is better. I mean, it's better. And also the derby actually demonstrate that, because Inter gift away the derby.
Yeah, they did.
Just the team that are stronger can gift away the victory. The other ones just lose because they deserve to lose.
No, I agree with that. No, for me, Milan has shown that they will fade away. We saw, I mean, the teams that win the Scudetto don't collapse like they did against Spezia, even though they were the referee and all that. The game against Sassuolo, I mean, we've seen they don't win. That's not a Scudetto winning team for me. It really isn't. I actually think they'll finish fourth, and Juventus will finish third. So I think they'll finish in the top four. But for me, Napoli is the one that's the Scudetto contender for me. That's the one I'm worried about. But hopefully, oh please, I don't want another 97-98. You know what I mean? Going there to Juve Stadium and yeah, I'm burnt. You can say that I'm burnt from history, for sure. Right, Jake, what do you think? Jake, quick prediction.
I mentioned it a little bit on in my piece just this morning when it was released. I think the fixture schedule this year has been really horrible in the way that it's panned out. Excuse me. The international breaks early season stopped Inter from getting a bit of a run going at the start, and then they had a really nice run of fixtures up to Christmas and looked like it was starting to build a head of steam. Christmas has come and they've not quite been the same since. And typically, as they sort of have stumbled a little bit, I thought they were really poor in the Coppa Italia, as much as it was a rotated side. They threw away the game at the weekend. I thought they weren't really brilliant against Atalanta either. Atalanta, they were quite happy with the draw. I know Dzeko missed a couple of chances in that game. I don't think they've really been that great since the turn of the year. And typically, they've now found themselves in a position where they've got a month of fixtures that are really, really difficult, and they're almost must-win. I draw parallels back to last season when Conte had a similar run of fixtures where Inter beat Juventus, they beat Milan and Lazio at San Siro, really big games where they just sort of steamrolled them, and they never looked back, and the title was almost done at that point. But I just don't feel like this Inter side at the minute is on the level of that Inter side were, in terms of the fact that they're not bulldozing their way through games. Yeah. So I'm not quite as confident. I think the game against Roma is important. If Inter can win against Roma comfortably, it will give them a little bit of confidence. If it was at San Siro, I'd be a bit more confident than I would be going to Naples. Yeah. That makes it a bit tougher. I think it's one goal either way. I really can't call it. I'd love to be like Mo and live in fantasy land of Latorre scoring last minute. That's a dream world. But I'm too boring and too negative for that. Yeah. I'm going to be positive, though, because why not? I think they can squeak it 1-0 or 2-1.
Okay. Fair enough. I hope you guys are right, and I hope I'm wrong. Send me all the abuse you want on social media if I turn out to be wrong. But because I'd gladly eat my words there. I don't have a good feeling at all about the Napoli game. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the negativity. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
Yeah, thank you, Nima. So, despite the appearances, the results of the derby wasn't the worst thing that happened into the derby. And that's because we have two episodes which need to be highlighted because the Italian press is not doing that, actually. So what happened? The first episode was about a pitch invader. So this guy actually invaded the pitch, and of course the TV coverage went out because they are not allowed to cover this. But we have the video published on the social media from the attendance in the stadium, and we saw that the pitch invader was caught after a long run, was caught by two people, and actually was immobilized. So he didn't do anything wrong, to be honest. I mean, yes, he interrupt the game, all right, but you need to stop him and send him out of the pitch, and everything is okay. But instead, the thing was different because we have this two stewards. They were immobilizing him, and the third one just came when the guy was already down and punch him. And this is very
what?
Yes.
Really?
The third steward, he punched him. I don't know if it's in the belly or probably in the guts as well, but you can see very clearly from the video that he punched him, and the guy was immobilized. That was completely unnecessary, right? And there was 2 Milan players. I think there was Theo Hernandez and Romagnoli that actually went to the steward and say, "Hey, stop that. This is unnecessary."
Jesus.
Right. Yes. And and today, I mean, to give a little bit of context, the stewards are not from Inter or from Milan. They are from a third party that is hired to guarantee the security of the pitch.
Like a security company, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, a security company. So they just published today a communication in which they say, okay, we are aware about this problem. We're aware about this. We're going to investigate. We're going to take actions, of course. But once again, you cannot see something like that. That was
in front of the whole stadium.
Exactly. How do you expect to get away with murder? I mean, you're not wise. I mean, you're not normal if you do something like that. But you're not wise because you have 30,000 people that are watching at you because everybody is going to have the eyes on the pitch invader. It's not just a TV, right? And they have smartphones, they have cameras. They know.
Everyone does. Everyone does nowadays. That's
exactly
the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Exactly. At the same time, I mean, in the second half, something happened in one of the part of the stadium was Primanello Blu, so basically below the Curva Sud. So what happened, and that was directly reported to me by witnesses that asked me to give a visibility to this episode on the Twitter. What happened? Happened that from the Curva Sud, a banner, of course, a Milan banner, dropped from the Curva Sud down to the Primanello Blu, and there was this, according to the witnesses, there was this Milan supporter that was just keeping the banner, and in order to get back at the end of the game. But and this is documented by the video as well. At some point, probably 20 guys masked, so with the face covered. And not with the COVID mask. I mean, with the black mask.
Yeah, like a balaclava, it's called in English.
Yeah, exactly. Cover just went them, and what happened next? It was mayhem, basically, because you see a lot of people going back and forth and running away, and there was people beat as well. And according to the witnesses, there was this Milanista guy that was just taking the banner in order to not get it lost. That was actually punched by these people, and yes, the police came. It was not. How you call? It was undercover police actually came, but always according to witnesses, it was just 10 or 15 minutes later, and people, normal people, even old elder people needs some assistance because yes, they went just into the mix at some point, and they just have beaten, probably not on purpose, but still, it's not going. You're not going to expect this. And the police just came. 10 minutes later. They arrested the guys. of course, or probably they just take them away. But I mean, the damage was done at that point. So these are things that we cannot afford these things to happen, especially when you have a stadium that is half of the occupancy. I mean, 30,000 people. It's very easy to handle for people that are actually used to handle this situation where you have 70,000 people in the stadium. So definitely cannot happen. And I really hope some action will be taken, and we are not going to see never again this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't belong. It's the kind of stuff you remember from terraces in the 80s. I wanted to ask you just quickly, just to disperse, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I saw you tweet about this, and I wanted to make it clear for all the English people following this, English speakers. So it was a Milan, so the banner was fell down from Curva Sud, and a Milan fan held it, and the Milan fan was holding it for them, and they came and beat him thinking he was an Inter fan or something?
Well, I don't know. Actually, this is an alleged version, because it was reported directly to me by one Inter fan that was there, and actually he claimed to have followed the whole scene, and that's what he reported. I don't have any direct witness to give a second voice on that. Okay. But I can rely that, and I know that for sure that three people were arrested. Two that came from the Curva Sud, and one that reacted into the Primo Anello Blu. So the three of them were arrested or actually taken away. I don't know. But what I know for sure is that at least 10 people were involved. I mean, nothing. Yeah, I mean, nothing really heavy. It was just.
No, I saw the video. I saw the video of them going at it on social media. But I thought that it was maybe, this classic ultras thing of one ultra had taken another group ultras banners, and then they have to defend it, don't they? Do you know what I mean? I thought it was like that. I had no idea that it fell down, and because I didn't pay attention to it. So thanks for clearing that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Jake Small.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Well, I feel a little bit as if I've got to try and pick things up after a bit of negative publicity for the San Siro inhabitants. I find each week that I'm trying to find some ridiculous football moment, and every week I find stuff like, no, that's just strange. So I'm going to go for something a little bit that you might not have seen. It's almost bordered on the verge of match fixing. If you're into Moroccan football, which I know that most people who listen to this podcast will be, especially those who will be following the relegation battle in the top flight. Friday evening saw probably the most bizarre own goal I think I've ever seen. I've watched it back about 4 or 5 times now just to check it. And I've never seen a goalkeeper miscontrol the ball, then face their own goal, and then smash it in. It's like when you're playing FIFA against your little brother, and you feel a bit sorry for him. So you take the kick off, boot it back to your keeper to smash it in to give him a goal. It's really bizarre. So I'm going to butcher the pronunciations here, but the goalkeeper Mehdi Ouaya, who's playing for Rapid Uzen, I think if I'm right, against Hassania Agadir in the Moroccan top flight, with his team trailing 1-0. The hosts are putting him under a little bit of pressure. Ball bounces back to the goalkeeper. He misjudges it, and facing his own goal, he decides to just smash the ball, and ends up, obviously, as he's facing his own goal, into his own top corner.
I saw that goal on the Sky Club Culture yesterday, and that goal broke Fabio Caressa. He was laughing to the point of tears. Like it literally made him cry of laughter because it was so bizarre. It's one of the most bizarre own goals I've ever seen in my life. It is so weird, and it does have that kind of feel of match fixing air about it.
It's like he's never played football before. It
really looks like that. It's just weird. I think Bergomi was cough laughing when they showed it as well. I mean, it was just so bizarre. It even made Di Canio laugh, and he never laughs, and he's never happy about anything. But yeah, no, it's one of the most bizarre goals I've ever seen. Right, let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti, which I'll be presenting in place of Mr. Mo Nassar, who had to run away.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and He surprised people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of this qualities.
Right. Mo sent. He had to run away. We were running over time, and he sent this to me. His Moratti of the week was Lautaro's spat with Theo Hernandez, because he loved and his reason for this was that's a real derby. You want to see those emotions, and Theo Hernandez behaved like a little child and was making gestures to the crowd as he was going, as after he was sent off, and Lautaro got pissed off. And according to Milan Twitter, he spat at Theo Hernandez. According to everyone with a functioning pair of eyeballs, he didn't spit at him. He insulted him. I think the words hijo and puta were used repeatedly. At least that's what you can see from Lautaro's mouth. But no, he did not spit at him. But yeah, that was Lautaro's. That was Mo's Moratti of the week. Right. That's all we have time for this week. I'd like to thank Cindy Marina. I'd like to thank Mo. I'd like to thank you, Fulvio. Don't be a stranger. I loved our little Stefano Sensi debate.
Oh yeah, it was energetic. Sorry
No,
about it.
No, don't. I love that, because it's boring to listen to people agree with each other. And you're passionate and knowledgeable, and so am I. So I love that. I absolutely loved it.
Always a pleasure to be here anyway. So I will be here soon, promise.
Oh, looking forward to it. And Mr. Jake Smalley.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me as always. Matt, I just add as well. I was kind of ambivalent towards Milan towards the weekend, but some of the behaviour, particularly from Theo Hernandez, has sort of riled me a little bit, and I really can't wait to see them fall away as the season goes on, because that means their scummy behaviour in the second half.
But he's such a child, Theo. I can't be upset. Like, what's a child? Like, I mean, who does that? It's like he really has little brother syndrome. I mean, when he was going off the pitch, like do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. I was laughing. I was like, grow up. I couldn't even get angry at it because it was so obvious. It's like
it was a fight for relevancy.
Yeah, it really was. Look at me, and it's like, and Lautaro took the bait. I would just have ignored him. It's just what a child, what an absolute child. So yeah, no, I thought it was a bit pathetic, to be honest. But yeah, that's all we have time for this week. As always, thank you to Fulvio, thank you to Jake, thank you to Cindy and Mo. Until next week, stay safe. Hope you get to see Inter get to the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia, where they could face Milan. 3 points, and sempre e solo forza Inter.